Okay, so quickly as a broad overview, so many of us who've been working with data and analyzing them and all that, we know that visualization is crucial in the entire workflow, and particularly in the exploration part. Right, here's a really nice a pictorial I have of the workflow in data analysis. This was put together by people at in the R community, which is an open source data analysis, data science platform. So this really nicely illustrates the flow that a typical data science, data exploration project might take. You bring in the data, do some initial tidying, and then do this, on most occasions, a repetitive, iterative process of transforming, visualizing, modeling, and then communicating. All of us are quite familiar with how visualizations are very crucial in the communication stage, where whether it is a report or a journal publication or a presentation, the results and data have to be visualized. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize here is visualization is a very key component of exploration itself, because it forms part of this very tight iterative loop of data exploration and trying out various ideas before you actually hit upon the actual thing you want to do. So visualization clearly is very important in this whole workflow. But when we think of cloud computing platforms, many of us who don't have background in that and are new to it and are also may not be experts, we wonder how to do the visualizations in the cloud itself, because data handling, we will be handling large amounts of data. So we end up falling back on the option of having to export and download and use other options for visualizations, which is definitely a legitimate way to go. But sometimes it might be very powerful to also have visualization capabilities in the cloud computing platform itself. And that's exactly what Earth Engine allows us to do. So you must all be familiar by now with the code editor layout. So we have the map window here and the console window here, which are the two primary areas to show visualizations in. And maps show, of course, maps, and the console shows lots of printed values. We'll now focus on charting or plotting, as some of us might be familiar with the other term. So charting is also possible in Earth Engine using this very same code editor interface, and values charted can be shown maybe on the map, maybe on the console, depending on whichever is convenient. And of course, I have to note that these charts can also be embedded in Earth Engine apps, which is now increasingly very popular as a communication tool for many things that has been done. And some of this that I just now mentioned was also reiterated by what Raj said a few minutes ago about how he has built apps for many things they've done. So charting is very powerful to have right there in the code editor framework, and that's exactly what I thought we will go over today. So to begin with, I want to point out that the user guide for Earth Engine has documentation. There's a section-wise description of how to do the charting. So here is an embedded link for you to go back and look at that page and follow along with code examples. But one of the things that I thought was missing there is just a logical organization of what kind of things you might do, what kind of charting functions you might invoke, depending on what kind of data you're working with and what you want to do with them. So if you begin here on the left side of the screen, we typically start with wondering what kind of data I have. So it might either be a raster or a table, and depending on what it is, you can navigate through this flowchart from left to right, and you will know what is possible to do and what function you might be interested in exploring. So we'll just go through this broad framework quickly, just so that we'll have a visual on the overall lay of the land for charting in Earth Engine. So to begin with, if you have your data in a table, so typically that would come in a feature collection. There are two options for charting values in a feature collection. we'll just quickly look at what that might be. So here's a visual on, so if you have a table, it's probably a nice little rectangular format. There are features on the on the left side, and there are all the properties on top, right? So you might want to do one of two things. Plot all properties of each feature, and that you can do using chart.feature.byFeature. On the other hand, you might take the same table and want to plot each feature on the horizontal axis, but have on the vertical axis different properties. So if you notice, the properties and the features here are just flipped, and both the options are available. Here's a so the documentation, the user guide has description for all of this. I'm just looking to show here some of the capabilities and what's going on. So if you were to use the chart feature by property, then here's an example where, let's say you have 3 features, Fairbanks, Phoenix, and Honolulu, and you have temperatures for different times of the year. You have temperatures on the vertical axis, and the color-coded, the data series are based on the feature. If you wanted the other way around, where the features are on the horizontal axis, but the temperatures are grouped according to the feature, then you would do the other way around, where the feature, which is color-coded here in the orange, so that goes down here in the horizontal axis, and all the legend that go into the vertical axis have to go in the Y properties. So that same data table plotted in 2 different ways. This is how it works. And here's, for each of these, there is the script that will do the plotting. So you can go back and take a look whenever you find the time. Then let us say your data is not in a table, but it's in a raster. In which case, we have 2 options. Either it's in a form of a single image or an image collection. Let's say you have it in an image. Then you have 2 things you can do with it, 2 options. So if you have a single image, you have to plot band values, but you can plot them in 2 slightly different ways. You go in here, so you have the image, and let's say you have one image but with multiple regions, then you can plot the band values in those multiple regions using this function call. But if you have an image which is all different classes, they're all categorized in group based on class values, then you can use charts. As you notice, regions are spatially contiguous, but classes might be quite dispersed, but they can still be charted. So here's again a quick overview of how those are done. So if you look at, if you want to chart one image with multiple regions, all the regions would go in here, right? So on the vertical axis, they are grouped by region, but all the band values go here on the horizontal axis. So for each of the band, what are the values in the various regions? This is how we do it. Again, this is the script link. If you wanted to do the same kind of charting, but by class, here you have a region where the class data is available, like water, forest, shrub, grass, and urban, but you wanted the band values for all of them, you would use this function and do it this way. As you notice, it plots all bands, but for one region, but all classes. Again, the script link is right there. Going back to, again, the map of how we are thinking about this. So we did data table as a feature collection, data raster as an image, but data in a raster format can also be in an image collection. And if it's in an image collection, you again have 2 things you can do with them. You again, of course, plot band values, but either as a time series or as a day of year series. So we'll look at what those might be. Time series first. So you have an entire image collection. Let's say here's a pictorial representation. So on the horizontal axis is the time axis. So you might have 2 scenarios where you have an image collection and you're interested in one region in that image collection. So you can chart all the band values in one region over an entire image collection axis by time using this function. If you have multiple regions, then you would pick one band to plot, but you will plot that one band across all regions in your image collection. So quick pictorials on how that might look. So here's an example of image, just one image, one region, all bands. So the time axis is on the horizontal axis. the various bands are color-coded depending on which data series that was. Again, script link is available. If you had multiple regions, but one image, then you have multiple regions, but you also have to select a band. And for that selected band, over these regions, you can plot a time series of what the values were like. So if you see, all the regions went up here in legend, and all the time ticks went on the horizontal axis. Script link is available again. Going back to our mental map, the last one in this map is image collection, the band values plotted as a day of year series. So what would that be? So just a quick overview of what a day of year series might be. So again, you're thinking of an image collection. It's accessed by time. So it might go, it is a multiple year image collection, let's say year 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you think about it, for each year, day of year goes from 1 to 365, let's say 365, 365, 366, and that repeats again. And if your question is, I'm interested in a particular day of year, but how that changed over multiple years, then you would wrap this around on itself year-wise, and all the day of years will line up like this, and you would combine them somehow. And this is how, and then you would get a chart with horizontal axis going from 1 to 365, and that's the day of year series. There are 3 options for day of year series: one region, multiple regions, all years, stuff like that. We'll quickly look at how to do that. Here's a way to do all years, one region. If you wanted to do year-wise, then you can have them plotted year-wise like this using DOI series by year. If you wanted to plot them by region, then you can give them the regions and select a band and plot them by day of year. Again, script link is available for this. So this is all the things that I have in this flow chart. So if you want to think about what data you have and how to plot them, these are the various options. These are the functions. All of these are clickable, and you can go down to those examples. But as I finish up, I wanted to also point out that there are a couple more options that I wasn't able to fit into that chart for the lack of time. So I'm just listing them here. It's also possible to plot histograms using these functions for whether it's a feature collection or an image. You can plot group data in tabular format. You can also plot arrays. And these links take you to documentation on the user guide to do the